We're going to come on to Norwich now. Michael, this is your specialist subject. Dean Smith at the helm. What do you make of this appointment? And also, tell us a bit about the timing of Daniel Farke's sacking and what you made of that.
Yeah, really interesting, the timing of Daniel sacking, because I think it was a decision they'd come to before the Brentford game. A penny for the thoughts of the directors when they won at Brentford. I don't know if they were anticipating that entirely. And it was in the away dressing room that night that Stuart Webber told Daniel Farke he was being sacked, and he had no idea. And we'd literally been standing talking to him about the win, watching the celebrations with the supporters moments earlier. So remarkable event, really, in terms of watching it all pan out. I think whether Stuart Webber had an idea of who he would have liked to have been Daniel Farke's replacement at that point, I would imagine so, because he does keep a list of those sorts of things. But I think it was come Sunday that they really started looking. It is remarkably fortunate, probably, that someone who was on Webber's list in terms of Dean Smith actually became available that morning. I guess only the key protagonists will know exactly how that played out, but certainly I get the impression that Dean Smith is someone that Stuart Webber has always wanted to work with. And although Frank Lampard was also spoken to, was definitely in the running, I don't think there'll be any disappointment at Norwich that it is Dean they've got. And actually, although some of the supporters felt maybe initially underwhelmed about it, because, you know, Frank Lampard's very exciting and Kjetil Knutsen have been linked and he's very exciting and unknown and mysterious, I actually think the more you think about the Dean Smith appointment, the more it makes sense and the more it makes a good fit for Norwich in the situation they're in.
What was the read on Lampard's situation, Michael? Was he unimpressed with the club? What was the take there?
In all honesty, I think Frank Lampard is the only one who can answer that question. I don't know. I think it's being kept under wraps. Norwich went all the way to Dubai to meet him and speak with him. So I think that tells you that Norwich was serious. They had long conversations with Frank. So that tells you that Frank must have been seriously considering it as well. Once they left those talks in Dubai, the parties all agreed, look, we're going to have a think about this and we'll have a chat when we all get back. And at that point, Frank told Norwich he didn't want to be considered anymore. Having looked at the whole process, I think it's quite clear that Stuart Webber did want to work with Dean Smith as well. So whether that's something that Frank took on board. But likewise, you know, the Norwich job is a risk at the moment. You look at the squad, there's no guarantee that those players are actually good enough to do what Norwich want them to do. And for Frank Lampard, it always struck me that if he was relegated with Norwich right at this moment in his managerial career, where would that leave him to go afterwards? So it always felt like a risky situation.
I know you say that only Lampard can answer the question, Michael, but I'm going to chuck one to Sam because he's a Chelsea boy. He wants to talk about Lampard. What do you think? Do you think Smith is a better fit?
I think currently, yeah, I think it makes sense with what Michael's saying in terms of the experience that he's had. Obviously, we know Aston Villa a few seasons ago, they were fighting the relegation and he was able to help them survive. And then the next season, he pushed them up the table. I think with Lampard, the job that he had at Chelsea was completely different. And even though he did very well, I think going into a role like Norwich at the moment, like Michael said, the uncertainty around the squad, the fact that you don't know if the players will, I think the mentality around Norwich at the moment in terms of them being like a yo-yo team going down and then going up, I don't know if it's necessarily the team that is perfect right now for Lampard. But I think for Dean Smith, a new manager bounce, and also the fact that he's also been in this situation before, it'll give the players the confidence, to play for him and understand that he's been in this position and they have to trust in him.
Yes, Sam, they've suffered some pretty harrowing losses, including one to Chelsea, haven't they, this season?
Yeah.
What are the priorities for Smith coming in? Is it just to tighten things up straight away?
Yeah, I think tighten things up and also just create a mentality of just being ruthless, going into games and knowing and wanting to win. I think when you see Norwich playing this season, it's almost as if they give up. Especially when we played against them at the Bridge, we scored a few goals and then it was just like we just started scoring more. Do you know what I mean? But I think if Norwich get that mentality of just, every game we've got a chance to win. Every game is a competition. We belong in the Premier League, not what everyone's saying about them having going down and going up. We want to stay here, and seeing that mentality throughout the squad, I think that will be the best thing for Norwich right now.
So go on, Ed.
No, sorry, I was going to ask Michael, is there an adjustment on that basis at Norwich, an acceptance that maybe the free-flowing football can't be the priority, Michael?
Well, I don't know if they played much free-flowing football this season either, to be honest. I think it's really interesting. Daniel Farke was a great coach and really well liked, and they had a really nice atmosphere around the ground. And I think the players showed against Brentford they did really want to do well for him. I think the problem was at Premier League level, and having bounced up and down, there was almost less accountability for if they lost. It was like, oh, this, it's a shame, rather than this. And Sam put it pretty well, that there's just this ruthlessness, this actual need and desire and belief in them that they can be good enough. They can actually do it. Whereas I think it felt like there were just too many doubts, and it's all part of a longer term process, so it doesn't really matter. And actually, I think some people at the club didn't want it to be like that. And ultimately, that's why they did make the change, and why I think Dean Smith coming in, he does know what it looks like to be good enough to survive. And I think the players kind of want to hear that from someone and be led by someone who knows what it takes. And then that will hopefully bring some belief in that they can do it. They're in a really interesting position because Southampton at home is a winnable game. I'm not going to write off Southampton because they're an excellent side in great form. But it's a game that Norwich would look at the start of the season and think, OK, we need to get some points here. So they have a great opportunity immediately to reset the narrative completely around the club, because basically, let's be honest, the whole country's written them off from pretty much the start. So it's a great opportunity, but it does obviously put the pressure on immediately on Dean Smith having a positive impact.
Yeah, and also, Michael, first 2 games at Carrow Road as well. Is that a good opportunity to get the fans on side straight away?
Yeah, I think that's probably been one of the things in the back of my mind since the Brentford win, because Daniel Farke was so appreciated by a lot of the supporters. They never really once got at him, which, when you consider the run they've been on, is a remarkable fact. And Carrow Road has been pretty noisy the last few home games. So I think there's a real willingness. Norwich fans hate the idea of their club being a laughing stock or being embarrassing because of their form in the Premier League. So I think there'll be a real willingness and togetherness going into these games. They do need to hit the ground running, because if it does start to unravel, then the focus of where maybe poor decisions have been made will switch to the recruitment and other areas. So it does feel like quite an important time. It does feel like it needs a fast start. But I think everyone will look forward to going to Carrow Road again. It's something new, and we'll see what we'll get.